Guys and gals, it's me, George, the Shade Tree Fix-It Man, and I'm getting ready to do a repair on my truck before I head out on my trip. I've just changed the oil, and now I'm about ready to change the cam positioning sensor, and I'll show you a picture of that in a moment. But I'm getting started here, and as you can see, I have marked these plug wires and the coil wire with the appropriate numbers, because I'm going to pull those wires off of that side. Then I'm going to lift the cap up out of the way and get down into the rotor, and I'll take you along as we go. So hold on to your hats, because here we go. So this is the cam positioning sensor, and you can see that when you buy it, it comes with some screws for attaching both this and also I think the other one, I'm not sure what the other one is for. The other ones may be to replace the screws in the rotor, which we'll discover as we get in there. And I don't know why this would have gone bad. I replaced the distributor 2 years ago, shortly after we got back from our trip then. But this is the unit, and it goes into the distributor, and that's what we're going to replace. Now, to take off the cap, you have two Torx screws. There's one down in there and one on the back side, and you'll notice something different about my screwdriver that I'm using. It has been cut off, so the handle is shortened. That's because when I did this job a couple of years ago, I discovered that my screwdriver would not fit down in the back side there, so I cut the handle off. Sometimes you have to sacrifice things to make them work, and that way, if I can get you down in there, see, now it'll fit underneath the cowling. So I'll get those off, and I'll finish pulling the spark plug wires off, and we'll lift the cap right up and out of the way so we get down to the heart of the matter. Okay, now we're ready to lift the distributor right out of there. We get the screws all disconnected and get the wires off that one side, and we'll lift our distributor cap right up and out of the way. Now, the very next thing is that we need to get our rotor positioned in the right place so that we can pull the sensor up. And there's the sensor down in there in the back with that plug on it. And so we're going to take those two screws off. Now, as I understand it, if I click the motor a couple of times and get that rotor pointing towards the sensor, there should be a slot underneath there that allows that sensor to come up and out of there. Now my lovely assistant is going to help me by clicking the starter just enough, and I got to make sure I don't have anything hanging down into the fans here or sitting on a fan belt or any of that good stuff, and I would have been leaning right on that thing. Okay. All right, click it.
Okay.
Yeah, click it. Again. A shorter one, just very barely click it. You went too far. Do it again. Don't hold it on so far.
Okay, I don't know.
Click it again.
Yeah?
Yep. Click it?
I did.
No, you didn't.
You said
You've got to engage the starter, but just as soon as it engages, you got to release it. That's the way. Do it again. One more just like that. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. And that's what you got to do to get that thing lined up. Now, it's not perfect, but I'm thinking that it might be close enough, so we'll find out. So the next thing to do, the very next thing, is to take the rotor button off. And I can't hold the camera and do all that at once, so you just hold on your hats and trust me that it comes off with a Phillips screwdriver. I believe that's a Phillips. Sure looks like it to me. Does it look like it to you? Yes, it does look like it to me. Okay, so I was wrong. It's not Phillips, it's Torx. And it's not exactly the same size as the other ones that we used to take the distributor cap off. But we have a similar screwdriver that is cut off to make for clearance underneath there. And of course I cut them off, and in the process of cutting them off, I cut the numbers off, so I can't tell you right off the bat. I don't see that there are any numbers on it other than what they would have been right there above that. I don't see that there's a number down here. I suppose I could do some investigation and find out. Anyway, you're going to need two different size Torx screwdrivers. You don't need the Phillips. Okay, so now you can see where that button is. That's down underneath there. And we actually went a little bit too far. So I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to get that out without having my wife rotate it again. We'll remove the screws and see what happens. Okay, after fighting time and time again to try and get this thing lined up properly, I've decided I'm going to take matters into my own hands, and I'm going to loosen up the bolt on the distributor so I can lift it up just enough so that I can rotate that without interference, because what happens is clicking the starter, every time it gets close, it goes right past. So I am not able to, take care of the issue. So that's what I'm going to do. And you'll note where my slot is pointing. So when I drop it back in place after I put the new one in, I'll get this lined up pointing just to the right of my sensor. Oh, by the way, I'm using a 10mm flex socket to get down in there with an extension on it. As you can see, like this, to get down in there to get the right angle and get it loosened up. No room to swing a regular wrench in there very well. I suppose it can be done. Okay, so I took the bolt right out, and as it turns out, I don't have to take the distributor out all the way, because there's enough room that I can turn that puppy down in there, put that back down in there, and I think I can get it lined up enough. Get me some more light here. Yeah, I'm going to be able to pull that puppy right up and out. So let me do that. I've unplugged it already, so I should be able to tip it and just kind of lightly finagle it out. Because see, you need that slot there. And which way do I want it? There we go. Tipping it up and wiggling it. Come on, George. It's just about out. Not quite, but just about. Should I say that this is not a how-to? Whoop, almost dropped my camera, my phone. This is not really a how-to, this is how I did it. And, come on. I mean, that puppy is right up there. I can see. It just needs a hair bit more. There we go, turn that just a hair bit more, like that, maybe too much. There we go. Got to get it lined up just right, see, for that to go down in there. Okay, that's the old one coming out. And while I get you right there, I'm going to take the new one, and I'm going to slide it right back down in there. Come on, girl. There. And we're back down in place. I think I'm in. Pretty bad when you have to take your glasses off so you can see what you're doing. Okay, get my light over here. If I get the light in the right place, then you guys can't see. There. Make sure that I have that all lined up just right. All right then. We'll put some screws in it. I'll plug the plug back in, put the rotor button back on, the distributor cap back on, put the wires back on, and then it'll be time to start. So you're going to reverse the process that I just showed you, taking it apart, and I'll show you once I get it all back together. And if I run into any more issues, I'll tell you about them along the way. Now I wanted to say one more thing here. I just finished getting the distributor bolted back down, but the two screws that go in there to hold this in place, they give you new ones, but I used the ones that were in it because they were machine screws, and the ones they give you to replace it with are self-tapping screws. And there are two versions of the distributor, one that has an aluminum body, which is the one that I have here, which I bought on purpose because I didn't want to use the plastic one, and the plastic one, which I'm sure uses that self-tapping style of screw. So if you have the plastic one, I would suggest that you use the new screws that they give you, because they not only are they self-tapping, and I'm sure that's what they are originally, but they also already have some Loctite on them. You know what I'm saying? There you have it. Let's finish getting this thing put back together. Another note, I did use the replacement screws for the rotor button, and they are not Torx, they are Allen head, and they're 2.5 millimeter, just for your information. And I use them because they, like the other screws supplied, had the Loctite on them. And part of the problem I had with my truck 2 years ago when it broke down on the highway was the screws had come out of the rotor, and yeah, so I don't want that to happen again, you know what I mean? And when I got home, realized that there was enough play in this distributor shaft on the old original one that it needed to be replaced. So this was a new distributor 2 years ago. And you may wonder how I'm getting at all of this stuff. I'll insert a couple of pictures right here that my wife took of me hanging over the front of the truck. Yeah, I'm almost laying down on the job, and I'm standing on a couple of toolboxes. Check it out. There we are, all back together again. Now let's see if it'll run, and then I'm going to shut it off and disconnect the battery and let it set for 10 minutes to reset the error code. Well, I might as well, while I'm taking the tools and stuff off, I'll take off my mount. This is my pillow. I had this laying up across there because I was laying right on top of all that mess. And that sure makes a big difference. That piece of dense foam, a bunch of that stuff I picked up at the dump 2 or 3 years ago. I use it for knee pads a lot, and a head pad when I'm underneath. And so let's start it and see if it'll start now. Okay, here we go. Let's see. And there's the engine code up there. Service engine soon. Starts right up now. So now all I got to do is shut it off, disconnect the battery for 10 minutes, And that light should go out. I have the emergency brake on, that's why that light is on. So now while I'm get the battery disconnected and waiting for the computer to reset itself, I wanted to point out one other thing. I have replaced the bulbs in my drop lights with these LED bulbs. They're much brighter. I use the daylight bulbs, much brighter, and they don't get hot. I mean, after an hour of using it, it's still just as cool to the touch, where otherwise you'd have been burning yourself. You know what I'm saying? That's just a tip from the old shade tree fix-it man. And so here is the end of the story. If I turn the key on, you can see the service engine soon light. And I'm going to start it. And it's back on again.